ranking watches under $1,000, dive watches to be specific today. Now, if you want to be part of the conversation in choosing which watches will be on these lists, because we're going to be doing this regularly, then please join the channel membership. $4.99 a month gets you access to that members only Discord chat where we have a specific channel where we choose these weekly power rankings. We're going to be doing this regularly, and we're going to be bringing it onto the YouTube channel for all of you to see. So today, power ranking from S to F tier dive watches under $1,000. It is 3:07 p.m. Let's get down to business. Okie dokie, guys. So right off the bat, there are probably some watches you expect to see on today's list, and there's probably some watches that you won't expect to see on today's list. But if you have an opinion on any of the watches and where they should be on your own power ranking list, then please put it in the comment section. Put the letter designation, like the rank, and then the name of the watch. We have 20 watches to go over today, so this is going to be a fun, long episode. Sit back, have a snack, enjoy yourself. I'm going to tell you something. I'm wearing a watch that could, in some realm, fit into this category of dive watch under $1,000. I'm wearing the Seiko Tuna SPBN 031. All right. Now, there are some purveyors that have this listed for like $925 online, but they're all out of stock, right? And we're not going by used or secondhand prices. We're looking at prices on the primary market. All right. So that being said, I understand there's going to be some watches that you could argue, oh, well, I found one of these under $1,000. Well, I've actually found one of these under $1,000. Blah, blah, blah. Believe me, you could find anything at any price range, but we're just going on what we can find new online. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. It should be stated that these are not in any particular order. Okay. We're just knocking them down as they show up. The first watch, the Bulova Devil Diver. Now, we can see on Bulova's own website, this is very vintagey, right? Very cool looking cushion case, crown at the 3 o'clock with kind of, I don't know if you could consider these integrated crown guards, but it's a recessed crown with that nice bulbous cushion case. Now, what do I think about this watch? Well, I'm a sucker for vintage watches. I'm a sucker for cushion cases. You can see there are some other colorways. Orange, we got orange and blue. This is, I believe, what they call the aquamarine. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Is this the aquamarine? Or they just call it green? No, let's call it green. Okay, whatever. And I believe this is black and red. I am partially colorblind when it comes to blues, blacks, and purples, I think. But yeah. So we have some colorways. They all look very, very vintage to my eyes. All right, so after some quick research, we could see here on Gear Patrol, they have all the pertinent specs. Miyota 821D automatic movement, 44 millimeter case, and of course the 666 feet. That's why they call it the Devil Diver, which is a 200 meter water resistance rating. For, let's see, buy it now, $795. So we're getting kind of, I don't know if I would say this is the top end of today's list. It's getting there, though. This is like the high end of the middle. So where would I put this watch? About $800 for a Miyota movement. You are getting a 200 meter water resistance rating and some really, really nice vintage aesthetic. I'm going to go ahead and put this B tier, all right? It's not S tier for sure with that Miyota movement. It's not A tier. 44 millimeters with that cushion case is going to wear oversized for a lot of people. And I feel like with that movement and that price, it's a bit much for what you get, but still solid B tier. If this didn't look as nicely vintage as it does, it would probably be lower. Next up, you see what I'm looking at here. Probably something you didn't expect to see, or maybe you did expect to see it, but you might be surprised where I'm going to put this. Okay, Invicta Pro Diver. You all know the joke on this channel is how much I freaking hate Invicta. Just hot dumpster fires is what I think of when I think of Invicta products. I've reviewed an Invicta Pro Diver. I've compared it to my Submariner, where a lot of people were really confused. How could this idiot nerd compare this watch to a Submariner? Well, it's because it's literally designed after a Submariner. So I stacked them back to back. But when people got super duper upset with me daring to compare it to the Rolex, they kind of missed the point. This Invicta Pro Diver is actually a pretty dang good watch when you consider you can get it for, let me see here. I guess they have some on Invicta stores for $49, $39, $77, depending on which movement and colorway. But for the NH35, I think at the time it was just under $100. And, I mean, it was a pretty solid watch. Is it something I would wear every day? No. I'm not a huge homage guy, and I'm fortunate enough to actually have a Submariner, so this would kind of be redundant because it's literally like a one-to-one copy. But you're getting a threaded crown. You're getting a decent water resistance rating, 100 meters, I think. You're getting a decent movement with the NH35. You're getting, solid stainless steel build quality. It's not the nicest finishing. It's not anything super complex, but it's usable and it's functional. And I'm going to give this C tier. This is, guys, I think it might come off as harsh when I say this is C tier, but I think the Bulova Devil Diver is a bit above it, but when you factor in the price, this is like high C tier, like a C plus, maybe B minus, honestly. That's crazy, right? I could have totally just trashed this watch. I think that's what a lot of people expected. I'm going to go ahead and honestly say C. Here's another watch I reviewed on the channel, the Helm Vanuatu. Now, this is a cult classic. It's not as much of a cult classic as some of the other watches we're going to talk about today, one in particular. But man, in the watch enthusiast community, these Helm Vanuatus are so popular and so sought after. The company that produces these Helm can't even keep up. They cannot keep up. It is not my aesthetic as far as the kind of stick handset, stick indexes, almost like I can see it kind of Bauhausy in that respect, but it's not totally minimalist. However, felt really good on the wrist, super duper functional, really love the serration on the bezel. This is a beefy ass tool watch. The issue is that they're like near impossible to get, right? You have to wait for a good long while and they're not super prevalent. I'm going to go ahead and give the Vanuatu a B rating. Going to be a little big on the wrist for you slender wrist folk. If you want to see the review, click on the top of the screen, I think around here, and check it out. But yeah, this is definitely a B tier diver. Oh my gosh, it came so soon. That's what she said. I didn't expect it to show up this early on the list. I kind of wanted to give myself a little bit more of a grace period before we had to jump into this one. All right, the Vosstok Amphibia. This is the cult watch that I was referring to earlier, like a second ago. No matter what I say about this watch, I'm going to get roasted. So I'm just going to go in. This is not a good watch. This is a toy. Something that you would get a kid. My dad got me one of these when I was a kid. They are tough, but also not the most robust watch you could get, right? Like you can bang these around and they'll work. They're not supremely accurate to begin with. They're not supremely complicated to begin with. They're not finished at all. Like literally this is like pot metal pressed into a shape of a watch case. The crown is nasty and gritty, and I've owned multiple of these. I've given these away on the channel. The bezel has no click retention for the most part, especially when we're talking about like this Scuba Dude variant. It feels gritty, gross, metal on metal action. You can get them for, you can see here the Scuba Dude's $67. It has to be on the list of dive watches under $1,000, but this is on the lowest end. I'm not going to give it F tier. This is D tier though. This is like a D tier diver. I'm sorry. No, you know what? I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry at all, actually. D. Next up, the GShock Frogman. This is going to be a surprise. So, okay. Probably surprised you guys giving the Invicta Pro Diver, like a C, like high C. And this G-Shock, I'm in love with G-Shocks, right? G-Shocks are incredible watches. We actually just did a Casio Oak review on the channel if you want to watch that. And the Frogman is one that's always been on my list. I think the Frogman is such a cool nautical themed, technically dive watch from G-Shock. I'm not going to give it as high marks as you might think, though. It's awesome, has some really cool nautical themed, I guess we wouldn't call it complications, we would call them functions, right? But here's the thing, this is one of the hardest G-Shocks to get. You can see here $750 for a digital one. And they make an analog one, which is also like over $700. So they made a bunch of variants. I'm really digging this this one here, which is the, what do they call it? The Arctic Explorer or something. $2,009, oh my, almost $3,000, guys, for this watch. It's insane. This is a special edition one. I think it's, what is it? The Arctic Explorer or something. Antarctic Research, whatever. It's so expensive, guys. Because of that alone, I'm going to have to bump this down to C. I'm also going to put this at C because it's really cool with some really great functions. But for a G-Shock to be this hard to attain, I don't like it. I don't like it. So for the price alone, unfortunately, I'm bumping it down to a C. That's actually insane what I'm realizing now because this is only one letter above the Vosstok Amphibia. Wow. This is a train wreck of a list. Next up, the Casio Dio, a watch I've reviewed on the channel. People still send me angry hate mail that I dared to say this isn't God's gift to watchmaking. The bezel didn't feel great. The crown was bad. And the second hand didn't hit the indexes at all. If you want to see the review, again, click up here and I'll link it. But this is very entry level, very, very entry level. I would literally put I see the Vosstok Amphibia and the Casio Dio as like on the same level. So I believe I gave it the Vosstok a D tier, Casio Dio immediate D tier. I'm not going to give it an F tier, but again, this is something I kind of see as a toy. So yeah, this is D tier material. Next up, the Tissot Seastar. You can find these. Look over here on the right hand side, a bunch under $1,000. We're going to be focusing on this Tissot Seastar 1000 Powermatic 80, 300 meter water resistance rating. One of my friends owns this watch. Big, broad handset. You have some different color variations to choose from. I'm a big fan of this deep blue. Yeah, here's the thing. The Powermatic 80 movement isn't the, I'm not going to say it's the craziest movement ever invented, but an 80-hour power reserve, Swiss made, really good functionality, nice date at the 6 o'clock. I wish it weren't circular date window. I wish that was nicely squared off, but still, at least they didn't put it at the 4:30. I think that this is honest B tier. I could see this competing with that Devil diver. This is a B tier diver. Moving on to the first Seiko on the list, and this is another controversial one. So they don't make this anymore. It's officially discontinued, but you can find them new. All right, so it's going on the list. I'm not talking about secondhand prices as far as used prices, but gray market, you can still find these new. The Seiko SKX, one of the most prolific watch enthusiast divers under $1,000 ever. This is most people's gateway drug to not only my channel, but to watch collecting in general. But I think a lot of people, when they think Seiko SKX and the time teller, they think of, you know, Kissing. And it's true. I freaking love this watch. 200 meter water resistance rating, a bezel that feels great, crown that's smooth enough, a movement that is honestly great. People don't give the 7S movement enough, and they don't give it enough. The movement is accurate. It's really super duper tough. It doesn't hack, it doesn't hand wind, but you don't need that with this watch. This is above the Casio Dio. It's worlds ahead of the Vosstok Amphibia. Is it, you know, as probably nicely finished or as complicated as a Tissot Seastar? No. But this is what people would consider like the quintessential enthusiast's diver when it comes to the entryway into this hobby. But that being said, when we compare this to a Tissot, to that Seastar 1000, does it compare? Should it be on the same tier? Probably not. And so because I gave the Tissot Seastar a B tier, I'm going to have to bump this down to C tier. I still love this watch, but it's kind of C tier territory along with the Invicta Pro Diver. That's right, I put them both there. Bada bing, bada boom, something you probably didn't expect me to do. Next up, kind of Seiko adjacent, owned by the same holding company, Seiko Epson Corporation, the Orient Kamasu, a watch that I've reviewed. This is probably the premier Orient diver nowadays in 2022. You know, sapphire crystal, really like good crown, very nice bezel from what I remember. And I unfortunately didn't get to review the one I wanted because thankfully Sam, one of my channel members and one of my buddies, sent me his. He opted for the black dial. I wanted to take a look at the red dial, but dude, that red kind of burgundy, what is that? That color is incredible. You also have more of kind of a, dude, I'm if you couldn't tell already, I'm the worst with colors. You have kind of more of like an aqua, I guess, and then a blue. This red with the black bezel is incredible. And when you factor in that you can get them for, look, $215 on Amazon, it's insane. It's insane to get a sapphire crystal hacking hand wind day date complication. This is a great value proposition. I'm going to be honest. Dare I give this an A tier rating? Because again, I gave the Tissot Seastar a B tier. This is very, very close to A tier material when you compare just for the price, like bang per buck alone. I'm doing it. Giving the Orient Kamasu an A tier rating. First A tier of the day. Round of applause, guys. Good job, Orient. By the way, full disclosure, Orient is a sponsor of my channel, so I do need to let you guys know that I have done certain episodes with Orient. This is not an Orient sponsored episode though, so I'm not I know there's going to be skeptics in the comment section. Well, he's only given an A tier because they pay him. I mean, if you want to believe that, go for it, but honestly, I think the amount of money that you spend on the watch you get gives this A tier, honestly. Is it as nicely finished as the Powermatic 80 Tissot? Probably not, but you're also spending, 3 to 4 times the price. So yeah, Orient crushes it right now. Next up, kind of, again, adjacent to that Tissot Seastar we keep talking about, another Swatch Group diver, the Medo Ocean Star. Now you can find these over $1,000. You can also find these under $1,000. We were looking at this one with the channel members yesterday. This one looks incredible. Unfortunately, it's over our price range, but we were looking at Macy's has this one, and it definitely deserves to be on the list. This is the high end of our list at $930. Caliber 80 Ocean Star. This one's kind of more bland than the other one. The Captain 5 stainless steel, 42.5 millimeter. Here's the issue that I have with this one. It doesn't look as nice as that Tissot. It's also more expensive than the Tissot. So for those two reasons, I'm going to bump it a letter grade below the Tissot. So I gave the Tissot a B tier, this Medo C tier, only because it's almost $1,000 and it doesn't look as good as the Tissot. So comparable specs, comparable finishing probably, but the Tissot just looks better. So yeah, Medo C tier. Next up, another Seiko. Man, who would have thought there'd be multiple Seikos on this list? Well, it's because Seiko makes a ton of dive watches under $1,000 that a lot of people like. The Seiko King Turtle made waves, no pun intended, a couple years ago when this got released. People were calling it affectionately the Seiko Grenade. Looks really cool with that kind of frag grenade pattern on the dial. I think this is super badass. This is like the SKX on steroids. This is obviously more expensive than the SKX was when it came out. But if you're going to be spending, you know, around $500 on a SKX 007 from some of these gray market people, then why not spend less than that on a really cool king turtle that mitigates any of the issues people had with the SKX? So you have hacking, you have hand wind, you have a cooler dial, you have this really nice, even more vintage cushion case. I need to get one of these. I think this is a really badass watch. If I gave the SKX a C tier, this is a step above. I'm going to give this a B tier as well. All right, another Swatch Group diver, one that my members were kind of torn upon. The Hamilton Khaki Navy Scuba. This is a really cool watch that I think looks best in green. There's a few reasons why. Really interesting handset. Love the red on the second hand. And just the slim lugs, these slim lugs, how they just swoop effortlessly into these integrated crown guards. I love this watch. It's kind of what the Submariner should be now, but it's not, because the Submariner keeps getting chonkier and chonkier. I love this watch. I absolutely love this watch. You can find it for under $700, and this is one that I honestly would own. It's not the most impressively finished. It's not going to be, again, the most complex. We're looking at watches under $1,000, guys. But I think this would be A tier, except for the date window. That stupid date window they should have put up here or down here. I think this, oh my God. I'm going to give it B tier with the Seastar. I'm going to give it B tier with the Seastar because it's almost it could have been A if it didn't have this, but I got to stick to my guns and be harsh here. So this is a B tier watch. Next up, a Marathon. I have not reviewed a Marathon. Guys, if any of you out there own a Marathon watch and you want to send it into the Time Teller channel, we pay shipping and insurance, and we'll send you some Time Teller merch as well. If you want to let us review it, that'd be really, really cool. But yeah, this Arctic Edition Medium Diver Quartz, MSAR Quartz. $800 here for a pretty dang ugly watch, in my opinion. Has that dastardly offset date window at 4:30. Has a very deep set Rio. The Rio is this part of the case in between the dial and the chapter ring, or dial and bezel, I should say. It's just way too deep set. These are tritium tubes. You're getting some, I guess, real world backing, because this is mil spec, government issued. Guys, if you only knew how bad mil spec was. Ask any dude in the military, they'll tell you. People would be a lot less impressed with the term mil spec if they knew how crappy mil spec actually was. Woo, I just bumped my mic. And this is just so funny, this marketing. They really want to harp on that mil spec thing. U.S. government specification issued and worn by troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Tritium gas tubes. Search and rescue, designed for search and rescue missions. Is that really like a selling point? Designed for search and rescue. This is part of the spec sheet. Swiss made. It uses a ETA F06 high torque 3 jewel quartz movement with an end of life indicator. This is kind of like what you'd get if you wanted a tuna, but you wanted something way uglier and yeah, just uglier and a little bit cheaper. I'm gonna go ahead and okay. The website says 36 millimeters. I would have honestly given this a D tier rating because of how ugly I think the watch is. But the specs and the fact that it has tritium and the fact that it uses a pretty good movement, and everyone that I know that owns one thinks they're very, very solid. And the fact that it's not very big at 36 millimeters, I'm going to give this C tier. I could have given it F because of how much I hate this freaking watch, but because it's just so ugly in my opinion. The deep set Rio, it just looks terrible. But this is C tier. Next up, the men's Doxa Sub Shark Hunter. This is on the, again, probably the highest end watch on today's list. Very vintage, cushion case, 200 meter water resistance rating, some really nice patination here, date at the 3 o'clock, beads of rice bracelet. This is just such a badass watch in my opinion. It's a Doxa. I mean, how can you not like this watch? If I gave the Seastar a B tier, this has got to be A tier. Again, for just under $1,000, you're getting a really cool watch with some really cool history. It's just, yeah, ETA 28242 movement. Total badass watch. This is A tier, in my opinion. I'm a sucker for vintage, guys. This is like a better version of the Bulova Devil Diver, in my opinion. Next up, the Laurier Neptune. Okay, this is a company, I think they wrote to me asking if I wanted a review. I said yeah, and then they ghosted me. Okay. So just under $500 for this watch. What do I think? Well, this is definite, dare I say, Tudor Black Bay vibes. Looks good. Broad arrow hand, interesting alternating indexes. Yeah, it's a handsome watch. I really like this crystal distortion. I haven't been able to review one yet. I'm going to go ahead and give this a C tier, though, because I feel like this is probably on the level with the Pro Diver and with the SKX. That's kind of where I see this watch. Looks nice. Yeah, solid. C is much better than you think, guys. It might sound harsh, but C is honestly much better. Miyota movement with the 28,000. So this is a Miyota premium movement. Impressive. Yeah, C tier. Solid. YAMA Superman. Here's some anecdotal stuff. Pretty much everyone I know that's owned a YAMA has had an issue with it. Okay. I know someone that owned this bronze Superman. This is obviously over the price range, but man, it looks good. They are built horribly from my experience. Don't take my word for it. If you like this company, buyer beware. I've had an issue with one of the YAMAs I've owned. I've made an episode about that. One of my good buddies owned a Superman. Within like a week of him unboxing it, the date complication broke. It's just, YAMA is a victim of their own success. What I mean is that they were essentially defunct. This is an old brand. And then they've recently, within the last, 3 years, come out with a bunch of watches. And I think they've gone too big too fast. And they sacrificed quality for quantity. I've told them that. And I made an episode about it. Yeah, I honestly, just because of the terrible experience that I know others have had and that I've had, it's a good looking watch. I don't trust it at all. I'm going to give the YAMA Superman an F tier rating. This is the first F. Bummer, but it's not going to be the last F because we're looking at a Dan Henry. Dan Henry watches are incredibly boring, in my humble opinion. They're uninspired. I get that this is like a super compressor homage, so I guess by definition it is inspired by other things. I just think that the logo has always been incredibly off-putting because it's just the signage. They should have done a logo. I think it saying Dan Henry in this font this reminds me of like Nordstrom Rack. I don't know why. I just think when I read this, I think Nordstrom Rack. Limited edition, of course. Everything's limited edition. $290. I mean, I know two people that have owned these and they enjoy them. They're not God's gift to watchmaking. We can all agree. 200 meter water resistance rating, NH35. Okay, maybe I lied. This isn't going to be an F tier. But this will be a D tier. I'm just really not impressed with these watches. And yeah, I know this is going to get me heat as well. People are going to be like, what are you talking about? Sapphire crystal, 200 meter water resistance rating, Seiko movement. Blah. This is boring to me, guys. I'm sorry. Like, if I want this design, I'm just going to get like a Boulder Expedition, right? 2 crowns, looks way better, way more functional. There, I said it. Next up, the third and final Seiko, Seiko Monster. For reference, my channel members chose the SRP 313, but really you can just transpose any reference number here, any monster reference number. Ooh, I like this limited edition one. Look at that. Icy. Man, this is dope. Oh, wait, this is a baby tuna. People call this the monster tuna as well. My bad. That is not a Seiko Monster. But this reference number is, it is affectionately known as the Seiko Dracula. A 1, a 2, Count Dracula? What is it? Anyway, this is a solid watch. Typical Seiko Diver 200 meter water resistance rating. This one has hacking, hand wind, and a day-date complication, excuse me. It's a good looking watch. Not as good as the Seiko Grenade though, which I think I gave a B tier. I can't bump it down to the SKX level because this is much more competent of a diver. I don't think it's as good looking as some of the B tier watches, but I'm going to put it on the level with B tier. This is a B tier watch. It's more than solid, not my specific cup of tea. Next up, the Zelos Spearfish. Okay, this is difficult working with these companies that produce small quantities of watches, also known as micro brands, because you can't find any of the ones I like. All right, I really liked this copper dial. I thought the white dial was cool. The only one available is a meteorite dial, which I do not like. I don't like the look of meteorite. I just don't. But when we look at the specs, 316L stainless steel, 40 millimeter diameter. You're getting a sapphire crystal, 200 meter water resistance rating. You are getting, let me see, which movement does this have? The LJP movement. So Swiss movement, $799. I'm going to put this at the B tier. We have a lot of B tier watches, a lot of solid watches under $1,000, guys. And finally, the Citizen ProMaster. All right, why do I love this watch and I don't even own it? Well, I own various Citizen ProMasters, I own various Citizen Eco Drives. I don't own a ProMaster diver. I think this watch is so badass because of that Eco Drive movement. It always works. Some of them aren't perfect because they have that dang offset date window. It does have a 4 o'clock crown. You can even get these with left-hand drive. I think that these are badass watches and you can get them incredibly affordably, $280. I'm honestly, again, bang per buck. When we're talking about super functional watches that are always working, specs and price are just meshed perfectly together. I gotta go with A tier. I honestly think that this is an A tier watch, and I wanted to finish up the list with a positive one. This is a really solid watch. A tier, Citizen ProMaster Diver. Good job. Always working. Super tough, and it's just, you can rely on it, and that's kind of what you want with divers under $1,000, right? These are tool watches. But let me know what you think, guys. What does your list look like? Which takes did I get wrong? Which takes did I get right? I know it's kind of controversial what I did with the Frogman, what I did with the Dan Henry, and maybe people will be upset with what I did with this Citizen, giving it an A tier rating. But let me know in the comments. Again, comments really do help my channel, and I will catch you on the next one. All right, guys? Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I love ya. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. Always remember, I didn't invent time. I just tell it. Dab.